when you work with clients in this space, and that's one thing that I really love about being on the commercial side versus the single family side, I feel like you really get to know your clients on a different level. They're more sophisticated. You have more things in common. You get the opportunity to invest alongside them if you like the deal. So they just become friends.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yonah Weiss. Grateful to be here today with another wonderful guest. I'm so excited to bring Brandi Shotwell to the show. Welcome. How are you today?
I am well. I'm doing so good. How are you? And thank you for having me, Yonah.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I love to connect with awesome people. You know, we did recently a LinkedIn challenge and you came on a
Yes,
LinkedIn live with me and that was fun. And so I'm
that
like,
was so
hey,
fun.
this young lady, I got to have her on my show.
I love it. I love it. We had two Brandies too. That was so funny.
That was pretty random, right? It's not the most common
Right.
name and have two at the same time. It was not planned.
Yes, it was so fun. It was super fun.
Well, yeah, it was not planned. Definitely fun. Try to lighten it up and, excited to really dig into your story. I know you've come a long way in the real estate space, done quite a bit,
Yes,
worn different hats,
I am.
and really just excited to hear, kind of your background and also what you're working on now, because I think there's some really exciting things happening with you right now.
It is. It is. Lots of exciting things.
Awesome. So tell me how you got started in the real estate world. Is this something that you really wanted to do from the beginning of your career, or what made you interested in real estate?
Yeah. So my husband and boyfriend was investing in real estate and I was super curious about it. I was like, what is this? I was in college. I'm like, I don't know anything about this, but I've always been like super, like really, really good at math. And he was going for a refinance on one of his properties. And he was like, you should really like look into this like as a career. And I'm like, really? And he was like, yeah. So he connected me with his mortgage broker and she gave me some basic training. And I literally walked to a mortgage office, Yonah, at what I was 19. I was in college and I walked into this office and I asked to speak to the owner. And I was dressed up like I was going for an interview and I was like, I need to know how to do this. I told him, I said, I've been talking to, so and so, and I want to do this as a career. And he hired me on the spot. He couldn't
Wow.
believe my age for one, and then just being so bold to walk into his office like that. And yeah, he taught me all the things, but this was on the residential side.
Hmm.
So this was almost 25 years ago. And so I credit it all to him for, having the patience to teach me everything I knew and take me under his wing. And yeah, so I've been on the commercial side for almost 9 years now, but before that, it was all single family.
That's awesome. So, I
Yeah,
mean, and so mortgages has really been kind of your career, dealing on the
that's been
underwriting
my
side,
career.
origination,
Yeah,
underwriting, the whole thing.
yeah, I've been on the origination side for as long as I can remember, forever. But of course, I've worn different hats in real estate. I've had a real estate license and
Hmm.
I tried to do sales. When business slowed down, I would do BPOs, which are small appraisals for banks. I've kind of worn many hats in the commercial space, but always finance.
Awesome. And so, what do you find?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest differences from going from residential lending to commercial lending for you? What was
The
it?
Oh my gosh, the biggest difference is the terminology. It's like the terminology when you're learning what it is on the commercial side versus what it is on the residential side. I find that that is the biggest transition, which is why when I'm working with clients that are new, I just kind of put their mind at ease. Like, you may not know it all. It's okay. I may call it something different from you, but I'm here to help you and not deter you. Because a lot of people I feel in this industry that are more established, they'll kind of look down if you don't know certain things. And so I think the terminology is the hardest because our jargon on the commercial side is completely different from the residential side. And you'll feel ignorant by calling it what the professionals do not call it, right?
It's so funny.
So, yeah, so I think that was the biggest transition for me is that all the rest is similar, but that was the biggest transition for me.
It's so funny because I spent a little bit of time at the beginning of my real estate journey also doing some commercial
Yes.
mortgages. And I also found
Yeah.
that was not that I had experience with residential before that, but just in general, there's so much jargon, so many like acronyms and just terms thrown around
Yes.
that it was at first very intimidating and at first
Yes.
kind of turned me off to it. But then I
Yeah.
literally actually I found someone gave me a book that was written by Iris Lodowitz, who's the founder of Eastern Union, and he wrote
Uh-huh.
this short, and you can find it in PDF form online. It's literally
Uh-huh.
downloadable. It was called the Eastern Way, and it was literally went through all of the basics, all the glossary, all of the terms, all the jargon, all the basics of commercial real
Yes.
estate, and it blew me away. I literally went through that in a couple of days. I was like, oh, okay, now I ever
Like,
understand,
now it
like,
makes
every
sense.
conversation that I just had. Now I understand it, and
Yes.
it's so important to have that. I think
Yes.
everyone needs to read something like that just to kind of get their mind at
Yes.
ease.
So I had a similar situation, but mine was it was called Commercial Real Estate 101. And the writer of the book is actually from Texas. And I found out about it early on in my career. The broker, my first commercial mortgage company that I worked at, they were like, "Hey, here's a book, read up on it." I read that it was a nice size book, but
Mhm,
I read through it in detail because I never want to sound ignorant or not knowing what I'm talking about. And that book helped tremendously because it is intimidating.
for sure. So at what
Yes.
point during your career, I mean, it just more recently, I think that you went from obviously spending a lot of time doing a lot of origination and then like, I want to really go off on my own and start my own business and run it on my own.
Yeah, that is a good question. So on the single family side, I had my own mortgage company for years. And when 2008 happened, I was like, oh, all my loan officers quit. They couldn't hang on because everything just shut down. So I was a loner, a loner in the shop. And so when I got on the commercial side, I knew it was something that I wanted to do eventually because I'd done it before on the single family side. I was licensed in 17 states and, I had 8 loan officers working for me. So I grew my company pretty big. And so I knew it was something I wanted to do, but I was just a little hesitant, right? But my volume was there. And a friend of mine, close friend of mine said, "Hey, when are you going out on your own?" And it was one of those aha moments because I had been talking about it with my husband and her and I went to lunch and she said that and it was like, okay, this must be the sign that I need to that I need to do this. And so about maybe 5 months later, I went out on my own from the firm that I was working for, and that was in February of 2020, right before COVID.
Wow, perfect timing, right? Perfect
I
timing.
was like, perfect timing, perfect timing. But it's so funny, when you take a leap of faith, how God works. And I was so like nervous, but I was like, I know I did the right thing. And it ended up being the biggest year for me that I had ever had in my commercial real estate career. And I was just like, okay, I did the right thing.
Wow. Right, because those
Yeah.
first few months, like everything was shut down basically.
Everything was shut down. It was so shut down. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to do? So I tried to just, I'm a pretty positive person. I just tried to stay positive. I use that as a time to just spend with my kids. I'm like, you're home doing school. I'm home doing work. Let's just make this fun,
Yeah.
and until things get back to normal. So yeah,
Yeah, it was a challenging time for
but it ended
everyone.
up being,
For sure. In the
yeah, it
commercial real
was.
estate space, especially, it was like, the world was shut down for a lot of respects, but the real estate world, especially with the uncertainty of the economy and everything that was going
Yes.
on, it was kind of scary. But I remember right at that time, around, May, a couple months after, we're already into COVID, people starting
Yeah.
to look at deals again. And then it's to
Yes.
take off. And then it ended up being like a boom year for real estate at the end of the year.
Yes. Yes. It was crazy. I was literally closing loans up until December 30th. It was nuts. I was like, oh my gosh. It was like we went from being shut down to, boss to the wall, all out, get it done. It was a lot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are there any like specific loan products that you specialize in over others, or are you trying to like a whole, one-stop shop?
Yeah, no, I'm a one-stop shop. I'm a broker, so I can do all different types of loans, Fannie, Freddie, HUD, bridge, all the things. But I will say that my specialty is multifamily properties. Now, I do fund other asset classes, but I typically will do that for my multifamily clients that are getting into other assets. But yeah, I'd be fund everything. So it's easier for me as a broker than working at a shop where I can only choose from this type of financing. It kind of opens the door to being able to go multiple different avenues.
Yeah, that's true. And that's amazing that you offer that because you're absolutely right. There are certain banks or certain lenders that really focus on one thing. And if you are under their umbrella, you're working for them, you're limited. But
Yeah.
when you run your own business and make your own rules, do whatever you want,
Yeah.
right?
You can do whatever you can do whatever you want. Yes, yes. And I would hate to be put in that box. I have a lot of colleagues in the industry and I'm like, man, you're so limited. Like you can't offer this or that or whatever the case may be. And they look at me, well, it's like, oh, it's risky for you because I have a salary plus commission, you know?
Hmm.
So I may have this little box to choose from, but there's some secure level of security in that. And I'm like, "Ah, okay, I see it. I see your point, but that
Yeah,
that works for you and this works for me. Yeah.
exactly. And when you're successful, right,
Yeah.
just having commissions is okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and multifamily, I mean, in the Dallas market is a great asset class to have because it's been an incredible market for years and years and years and continues to be so. And there's a lot more supply that's coming in as
Yeah.
well.
Yep, it is. It is. Dallas is really a good market. I obviously funded deals here. I fund deals nationwide. It's so funny because people think that because I'm in Dallas, all of my deals that I close are in Dallas, and it's not. Like the majority of the loans that I close are really outside of Dallas,
Mm,
outside of Texas, I should say. But I think what happened is in the Dallas market, a lot of investors were a little shy because the cap rates were so compressed and a lot of deals didn't pencil out,
mhm.
whatever the case may be. But Dallas is a hot market,
Yeah.
and if you can get in it and the numbers work, do it. I always tell people I came down here in 2008 to visit because I've only been in Dallas for 9 years. I'm from the Midwest and right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And I came down here in 2008 and everything was booming to me, right? Everything looked like, oh, it's just like you
Hmm.
guys must be recession proof because back home, it does not look like this.
Hmm.
But down here was the economy is just amazing. I don't want to say recession proof, but it's pretty amazing.
It is, and it is, having one of the biggest economies and GDPs in the country, and there's so much growth
Yeah.
happening all the time. And because it's such a big
Yeah.
city and continues to
Yeah.
expand, not every city is built like that,
Yes.
right? Chicago, for example,
Yeah.
you have a lake you have a body of water on one side. You can't expand
Yep.
in that side,
Can't.
but right?
No.
Dallas just keeps getting
Yep.
Bigger and bigger. Similar to Atlanta.
It
Atlanta is very
does.
similar in that way. It just keeps expanding, keeps
Yes.
building in the outskirts.
Exactly. It's same exact thing. It's like that. I used to call Atlanta like little Dallas because that's what it mirrors Dallas. It does.
Very similar. Yeah, absolutely. Now
Yeah.
you working with clients around the country, finding for them, deals.
Yes.
The past 6 months or so, it's been a little bit quiet. I think 2023, the end of 2023, I think was more of a
Yeah.
quiet year for a lot of people in terms of
Yes.
especially on the lending side.
Yes.
How did you guys weather that? I mean, not everyone's really doing refinances as usual.
Yeah, so actually, refinances is what kept us alive. We did a lot of bridge debt over the last few years.
Mhm.
Bridge debt money was so cheap.
Yeah.
You were able to get higher loan to values, and a lot of operators opted for bridge debt. So it's kind of one of those things where it sets you up for a business later. So even in slow times, there are refinances happening, not as many, not as many as I would like, because rates were so high.
Right.
Some deals that were ready to refinance, they wouldn't pencil out because the rates were so high. Right. And then obviously, if it doesn't make sense for them to refinance just yet, I told a lot of clients, just wait till next year. Let's see what happens with the rates, and let's wait, because the last thing you want to do is put a client in a loan product that just does not work for them, their investors, or their business plan. Yeah. So that's what we did. It's just, keeping in touch with our clients. We are very, very hands-on. What I call what we do is just like a white glove type of service. So I was helping a lot on the asset management side with my clients on the back end when they needed help working with lenders for draws or DSCR tests or what have you. I was leveraging my relationships with those lenders to try to help them navigate through these high interest rate environments and what that looks like. And that actually took up a lot of time. So between helping and closing on refinances, that's just basically what we did.
Was that like a separate
Yeah.
consulting service, or you just did that for your clients just to kind of help them
No,
get
just
through it?
did it. Just did it. No, yeah, just did it. No, I'm not charging for it or anything. It takes a lot of time, but no, I'm not charging for it. I just have a heart for people, and when you work with clients in this space, and that's one thing that I really love about being on the commercial side versus the single family side. I feel like you really get to know your clients on a different level. They're more sophisticated, you have more things in common. You get the opportunity to invest alongside them if you
Mm.
like the deal. So they just become friends. Some of my closest friends that I made in this industry, which is so crazy to think. So it's just something that I like to offer of service. If you close along with me, I'm not going to charge you a consultant fee when you need help in the end. I'm going to say, hey, let me call so and so. Let me make this phone call. Let me see what I can do to help. And I've been able to do it. It's a teamwork effort, even after closing. And that's super important for
Yeah.
me to be able to offer that to them.
Absolutely, and it's super important for the clients as well because they're certainly going to come back, especially when you become friends with them. And I found the same. It's amazing the amount of people that I've become very close friends with in this industry who
Yeah.
are clients of mine or just people that we've networked and just doing a lot of common things. There's so much likability, I think, because the like mindedness. So
Yes.
it's fascinating.
Yes, it is. It is. It's really good.
And so you mentioned like
Yeah.
you've been able to invest alongside some of your
Yeah.
clients and their deals. Were you involved in investing at all? I mean, you mentioned your husband, then boyfriend, was doing some real estate investment back then.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've always invested in real estate, mainly on the single family side, because just that's what I knew without a shadow of a doubt. I know it. And my husband is also a developer. So we buy tracts of land and build houses and sell them. And we've done the whole thing. So
Hmm.
when it came to commercial side, I was really looking for more tax advantages than anything. I was like, I really need to get into this multifamily side of investing with Cossack.
Hmm.
When I learned about that part of it, it was just like, wow. When I got into this industry, I was like, we have to move over to the commercial side as well. So we're very diversified. We're in oil and gas, we're in single family, we're in land, we're in multifamily. But there are certain deals that I was like, I want to be a part of that because I think it's going to do well.
And when you're dealing with clients and you really able to see a lot of what they're doing, it gives you much more confidence.
Yeah.
Well, kind of both.
Oh,
I mean, you,
100%.
on both sides also, you see the people that you do not want to invest with, right?
A hundred
You stay
percent,
away
a
from.
hundred
You'll help
percent,
them. You'll
because
help them with their loans, but you're not gonna.
yeah, like I don't know about that, but no, there are times that I invested just because of who it was. It's like, okay, I don't need to look at the underwriting, or whatever outside of the loan part. Like, here's some money. I want in. So, but it's just because you build those relationships and you know the character of those people. And that's why I tell people all the time, invest with people that you trust and that you know, that you really, really know. That when, the camera is off and the doors are closed, do they still have that same level of integrity?
100%. That's the most
That means
important
a
thing.
lot.
The
Yeah.
most important thing. And that's something that I don't remember who said it, but a very wise person, maybe it was Warren Buffett or some other very successful that, it takes, years and decades to build integrity and which can be lost in a few minutes, and that's,
Yep. Yep.
because it's really who you are, like you said, behind closed doors, are you doing the same thing? Are you the same good person that you appear to be
Yep.
when everything's going well or whatnot? And that's something that
Yep.
I'm sure you've come across this because I've definitely come across it. But when you're dealing with loans and they need to get closed and there's a timeline and there is pressure,
Yes.
that's when stress comes out. That's when you see people's true colors.
Yes, that is when you see who they really are. And I've definitely had my fair share. Yeah.
Any
So,
crazy stories or any like wild loan closings or anything like that that you recall? We love to get
oh
nice
my God.
stories.
Oh my gosh. It's so many. Oh, I got one. This one, I think this one is probably in my top five. But I was closing a loan in Florida for a client, and they had a tick investor on the deal that lived in California. And when the legal docs were issued from the lender, they were asking, was the tick married? The tick investor told me he was not married. He was like, no, I'm not married. What have you? They run the searches, find out that he has a wife that he's estranged from. So
Mhm.
he is technically legally still married. The wife does not speak English and she lives in Mexico. And we need her signature and we're closing the next day. Yeah. And it was one of those things where, the contract had been extended and we had to get it closed. And so we had to call her. He was like, I don't want to be involved. You're gonna have to call her on your own. And I'm like, what? And so when we get her on the phone, that's when I found out she couldn't speak any English. I had to have a translator on the phone to translate what I was trying to say. She thought we were calling to take custody of her daughter because I don't know what happened in their
Wow.
marriage demise. But when I tell you it was the craziest thing ever, we had to get a notary, a mobile notary to go to Mexico to get her signature on those documents and reassure her that we were not trying to get custody of her child or take her child. This was completely, related to an investment that he obviously didn't want her to know about. I
Wow.
was just like, yeah, that was probably top 5.
That's pretty crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, that's pretty
crazy.
crazy. Yeah. So I have since then, like, tried to drive home points or when you have a tick investor, you gotta make sure this is covered, that is covered, and that is covered because, yeah, it can get super complicated, and that was so not expected,
It's from
but we
stories
made it
like that.
through.
Yeah, it's from stories like that that you learn. You learn the hard
Yes.
way.
You learn the hard way. You learn the hard way. I would not have expected that.
That's a pretty wild story. But it just goes
Yeah.
to show you there, a lot of times, I'm sure you've come across this when it's like the loan needs to get closed today.
Yes.
Something random out of left field always comes.
Always. Always, always. I don't care how smooth it's going, something is going to happen on a deal. And I think for us, we're more seasoned. We close a ton of deals. So it's just like second nature. You're almost living in expectation of, okay, what fire are we going to
What's
have
going
to
to
put
happen
out
now?
next? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but it never fails. Like there have been times where I got all the way through closing, like in expectation of something happening. And I'm like, I just know something is like I'm just waiting for something to happen. And sometimes it doesn't, but more times it does.
Right. It's like that sigh of relief when like everything's closed, you can celebrate.
Yes.
It's like,
It's like,
wow.
Whew,
Now you
okay.
understand why like people celebrate so much after a closing. It's like,
Yes.
wow, we made it through.
We made it through. Yes.
Like a miracle. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, Brandy, we can keep going on for hours, but I do want to wind it down to what we call the final four. These are four questions I like to
Okay.
ask all my guests. And the first question for you is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
Okay. So I have not had many, but I would say the worst job is the creepiest job at a cemetery. That was my very first job was at a cemetery. I worked in the office, right? But I was at a cemetery and then I had to deal with the grieving families that came in. So definitely that was the worst job I
How
had.
does one get a job at a cemetery in as their
You
first
know, you
job?
know somebody who knows your family and they're like, she needs a job. Oh, she can come work in the office. We need help. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's how I got a job at the cemetery. Yeah, I was 15 years old and I went to work at the cemetery. Yeah, it was pretty weird. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I was trying to think of some joke, but I'm gonna hold myself back.
Okay.
Second question: what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Oh, I shared this book during our challenge. It is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by
Mm,
Joseph Murphy. And it was a game changer for me. It was before I knew anything about The Secret coming out, right? I read this book and a neighbor gave it to me and he was like, "Man, you got to read this book." My husband read it and my husband gave it to me. He was like, "You got to read this book." But it was so powerful, just really teaching us about the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind and how to get on the right track with your thinking. And it's backed up with scriptures. If you're a believer, then, that's good. But it's not, I wouldn't call it a Christian book, but it is very much a thought book and it will change your life. It changed mine. And that kind of put me on the path to being positive and watching what I said
mm,
and making
interesting.
sure that, yeah, it was just like everything. It was a true paradigm shift for me because a lot of the habits, like you will never catch me saying, "Oh, I'm dying laughing." I'm not gonna speak that. It made me so hypersensitive just to the smaller things that we take for granted that we speak over ourselves and how they can manifest into our subconscious mind.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
powerful. I'm a firm believer in that as well. I haven't read the book yet,
Yeah.
but I'm very curious to see because these
Yes.
things, like I'm very careful the words that I choose and certain things to to not say for various reasons. So
Yes.
I definitely align myself with that. So I'm definitely gonna check that out as soon as we get off. Gonna go
Me
order
too.
that book. Put
Yes.
it on the reading list. I usually just put it on the reading list, but I was so intrigued by this. I'm gonna go order it.
Okay.
Third question is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this could be anything.
Okay. So I am leaving for a trip next week to Vail. Yeah, I'm going on business. And I have not gone skiing since I was about 12. And I want to go skiing when I get to Vail, but I don't know how to ski. And I'm scared because you always hear of somebody breaking something, injuring themselves. And I can't afford to have any downtime right now.
Hmm.
But that is something that if I could learn and guarantee that I wouldn't hurt myself, oh my gosh, I could see myself on the slopes now. But I don't know if I'm going to do it.
Well, you just got to
So still,
leverage the power of the positive subconscious mind. And then,
yeah. Well, I don't know. My body may disagree with that.
right.
So
Sometimes we
I don't.
forget,
I don't know.
sometimes we forget,
Right. I'm
like,
like,
we, I also think, like, yeah, I want to do some, sport or something. Then after I do it, I'm like, wow, I'm 43. I'm not as
right,
agile as I used to be. Everything is aching.
right,
Why is everything aching?
right. That's all I was thinking about. I was like, how am I going to feel the next day? I had even told myself, like, before it got cooler, I was walking every day. I would walk in the mornings and I'm like, I need to start back walking and maybe get myself up to a run. And if I can do that, then I'll probably be okay, on my lessons. But yeah, I don't know. I may take the plunge, but we'll see. But that is one thing where I see people, I think it's like the coolest thing ever, but I may just be fireside watching everybody else ski.
All right. Well, we'll have to see. Keep us posted.
Yes.
Fourth and final question. What does success mean to you?
Oh gosh. So success to me is, it's so many things, but I would say one, financial freedom, right? Because it gives you the ability to be able to think and create and help other people.
Hmm.
And you can't necessarily do that when you're in a hustle and bustle or in a
Right.
rat race, right? So I think financial freedom so that you can do other things. And I also feel like success is, if you're a parent, like for me, success is making sure that my kids are well functioning people of society. That, that their success is my success. So seeing them grow into these wonderful little human beings is super important for me. So that would also mean success for me. And then the last thing is how many people you touch throughout your lifetime. So, uh, two people, very close people, my mom and my uncle, that I've lost in the past, they passed away, and their funerals were overflowing. And that just means so much because it's like, wow, you touched that many people that they said that they had to come and be at your funeral. And it just meant a lot. At my mom's funeral, people were coming up to me and telling me how she changed their life. She helped them when they didn't have rent money and
Wow.
all the things. And I was just like, wow, that is success because you have touched the lives of so many people in your life, in your lifetime. So I want to be that person where
Yeah.
it's not that I boast about it. We don't need to post it on social media if I helped you, but I want to help any way I can.
Yeah.
So I think that is the real meaning of success and why we're here.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
can relate to that very much so. It's very powerful. I just
Yeah.
it brought up some memories I actually had. My grandfather who passed away close to 20 years ago, and I just remember random people, like strangers, like coming up to me after the funeral, like just hugging me and like, your grandfather was the greatest person, and he was so kind, and he helped me and he cared for me, and like random, like it was nonstop, and I was just like blown away, like,
Yes.
who are all these people? Of
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But it meant a lot, right? And it's just
course.
like,
Yeah.
your grandfather didn't boast about it. He didn't tell
Never.
people, "Oh, I helped this person or I helped this person." It was just people coming up to you and saying that. It's just like, wow, this is what life is about.
Yeah.
But you also need financial freedom so you can so you can do that,
Can
right?
do that.
So
That's
it
true.
kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
it's a responsibility. It's a lot to live up to, and that means you want to
100%.
continue the legacy that they've left.
Yes. 100%.
Love that,
Yes.
Brandy.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want to?
So the best way to find me is on my website. It is renocm.com. And my email's there, my phone is there, contact information, and all the things.
Okay, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. I hope people do reach out to you, and obviously they can find you on LinkedIn, which is where we first met.
Yes,
And
yes.
this has been awesome. I'm so grateful that you took the
It's
time
been
today.
great. Yes, thank you so much, Yonah, for having me. It was wonderful.
Yeah, we should keep going for a couple hours, but this is
Yeah.
we'll have to
Yes,
call it a show. Thank you again. And
right.
to our listeners, you guys are awesome for listening all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, until next time, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, connection request, Yonah Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.